To it. First question I've got chatting with a client yesterday: is getting a diagnosis for knee pain important? And um, this wasn't actually a client, sorry, this was just someone in the gym when I was training yesterday. They were just chatting to me about knee pain, and they were saying they were struggling with anterior knee pain or jumper's knee, which is like a repetitive strain injury, and their patella tendon was essentially getting very aggravated. And they were kind of a little bit worried. They'd seen quite a few physios previously, and they got different diagnoses essentially every time. So I think one physio said jumper's knee, another physio said could be like ligament or meniscus damage, and they were just asking me, is the diagnosis actually relevant or important for knee rehab? And to be honest, in a lot of cases, I don't think it is. I only think it's important unless you've had like a acute trauma, which basically means the injury has happened very suddenly and it's happened quite obviously. So like you're playing rugby, you're playing football, and then suddenly it comes on and you're in a lot of pain. Usually it's like a collision or something happening very quickly. Straight away, you're in a lot of pain. You hear maybe like a crunch. Something has definitely happened. And in that case where, you fully torn your ACL, PCL, damaged your meniscus, in that case, I think the diagnosis is important. But if you've been dealing with chronic knee pain for a long period of time and nothing else has helped, then I feel like kind of focusing on the diagnosis isn't important. And the best thing you can do is just start to rehab it and start to look at where you're weak. Is your mobility poor? Are you weaker on that leg, which is most likely if you've been dealing with knee pain for a long period of time? And then how can you actually start to build up strength, mobility, and improve your confidence, which will then reduce your knee pain? One of the best places to start with knee pain is isometrics. I've talked a lot about this on my channel. I've done quite a few videos on this. Isometric exercises are just an exercise where you're holding a particular position and you're not actively going through a range of movement. So for knee pain, this can be really nice because if you've had knee pain, like I have previously, it's incredibly painful in certain ranges to bend your knee, and your knee can get very irritated and it can flare up if you bend it too much. So probably, two best isometrics. Number one would be a foam roller bridge. If you don't know what that is, just have a look through my channel on knee pain. It'll be in most of those videos where you're lying on your back, feet are flat on the foam roller, and then you're doing a little hamstring bridge in that position. So you're lifting your hips slightly off the floor, feet are flat on the foam roller, and your hips are about half an inch off the floor, and your hamstrings and calves are working really hard. That's a really nice one. Another one to pair with that is a wall sit. So if your knee pain is very irritable, you can do a double leg wall sit where you just sat up against the wall. You can start off really nice and high on the wall so you don't have that much knee bend. And then to make it more difficult, you simply move further and further down the wall. If a double leg is too easy, then try a single leg. And again, that's a great option. In terms of amount of time to kind of hold each exercise, anywhere between 45 to 60 seconds is good. So you could do, you could do 45 to 60 seconds on the foam roller bridge. And then you could do 45 to 60 seconds on the wall sit. And you could do 3 to 4 sets of that 2 to 3 times a week. That's a great place to start if you're struggling with chronic knee pain or knee pain that's been going on even for a few months, because you're not going to damage the knee because you're not moving it in like really deep ranges, and you're going to start to improve strength, a bit of mobility as well, and your pain will decrease as well. So hopefully that answers that question on knee pain. Next, we've got something to do with back pain. So this was a question from a client I was seeing yesterday in person, and he came into me and he'd been told by, I think it was his previous coach or physio, that the reason he had back pain was because of bad posture. We chatted through this. He was like, is my posture an issue? And bottom line, posture has got very little to do with back pain. There's no such thing as good posture. A lot of people think good posture is like sitting bolt upright and being straight all the time. And this can actually cause a lot more issues than actually be a good thing. Because the research shows, and from my experience, that people who are stuck in one posture or position for a long period of time, regardless of what that is, tend to experience more back pain. So regardless of if it's being sat bolt upright all the time or it's slouched and slumped over a computer, it doesn't really matter. Or even stood up all day in one position if you're kind of doing like a manual labor job. The key is movement and changing postures and positions as frequently as you can. If you're sat at a desk all day, like a lot of us, then changing your posture from maybe like a seated position to a standing every half an hour to 45 minutes, if that's possible. Or manual labor is a lot more challenging if you're stood up all day in one position, like you're an electrician or you work in a building site, then that's a little bit more challenging. But for 90% of us who are sat at a desk, just alternate between being seated and standing and kneeling and just different postures and positions. Again, the research, there's no link between good/bad postures and back pain. It's more a case that it's a lack of movement and being stuck in any posture. There is definitely a link with back pain. So that's probably one of the easiest wins, again, with a lot of people with back pain, because if you go in and see a physio and they give you 3 exercises, the exercises might be really, really good, but realistically, they're only going to take you 10, 15, 20 minutes a day. For the other 22, 23 hours, if you think that you need to be in a good posture, then you're going to walk around bolt upright, you're going to sit bolt upright, and you're never going to actually access that slouching position. So you're never going to actually move out of a different posture. So no matter how good the exercises are, if you're not doing, if you're not kind of exploring different positions and postures and moving throughout the rest of your day, then it's completely pointless doing the exercises. So that's a really key point for back pain. Next question. Struggling with hip mobility, should I do more stretching? So again, this was just someone I was chatting to this week in the gym. There's a lot going around on like social media with hip mobility and should I do stretching? Should I not do stretching? The bottom line is stretching is quite an ineffective way to improve your hip mobility. You might have tried yoga previously. You might have tried some like Pilates, something like that. The reason this isn't effective is because you're targeting the muscles and you're not moving the bones. And this sounds like a bit of a weird concept, but if you think about it, if your muscles are tight, a lot of it stems from the bones that the muscles are attached to not being able to move particularly well. So at your hip, for example, if your pelvis can't move well, so like you can't dump your pelvis forward well, you can't stick your bum out well, you can't shift your pelvis side to side, you can't rotate your pelvis well, then a lot of the muscles that attach onto the hip are going to struggle and potentially can be tight. So instead of trying to stretch your hamstrings, your hip flexors, your glutes individually, I would just try to get your pelvis moving better and also the bones that sit into your pelvis. So your femur, or the bone that's between your knee and your hip, so like the bone under your quads, your thigh bone, if you can improve the movement of that and the movement of your pelvis, you're going to get way better bang for your buck. In terms of exercises for that, I've got a load of exercises on both of those on my YouTube channel. So just check out any of the hip mobility videos on that. I haven't got time to go through them now. But, excuse me, bottom line, stretching isn't that effective. You're better off getting the bones moving. And as well, you won't have to do that every day. If you do that, you could get away with doing 3 to 4 mobility sessions, 10, 15 minutes every week, instead of spending hours every week trying to stretch something that isn't going to work. A few more questions here from people. So I've just started doing jiu-jitsu. I was chatting to a guy yesterday when I was rolling, and he'd picked up a few niggles in his elbow, his neck, and his shoulder. And he was asking me about strength training. Is it worth adding strength training into jiu-jitsu? And this applies to obviously any other sport. If you do football, rugby, CrossFit, weightlifting, high rocks, is it worth doing like specific strength training sessions? The answer to that is obviously strength is really, really important for jiu-jitsu, or to be honest, any other sport. Minimum effective dose would be 3 strength sessions a week, I would say. And a nice way to do that is 1 upper body day, 1 lower body day, and then 1 full body day. That allows you to hit each muscle group at least twice a week, which you need to maintain or build strength and maintain or build or increase muscle mass if that's something you need in your sport. So yeah, 3-day split. Each session shouldn't take you more than 45 to 60 minutes. And in those sessions, you're looking to hit predominantly compound lifts, a variation of a squat, a pull/deadlift, a pressing movement like an overhead press, a bench press for your upper body, and then also some pulling movements for your upper body, again, compound pull-ups, chin-ups, things like that, because then you're hitting a lot of different muscle groups. Then once you've done those kind of primary movements, then you can move on to accessories and target smaller muscle groups. But the bottom line is 3 strength sessions a week is a good place to start. And that's going to help you fix your injuries, prevent future injuries, because strength is the foundation of everything. And essentially, if your peak strength or your 1 rep maxes on squat, bench, deadlift, or variations of those is higher, then your performance is going to increase in all other aspects, in terms of you're going to be able to be faster, you can potentially be more mobile if you train strength in deeper ranges, and you're going to recover better as well, and you're going to be able to do more of your sport. You're going to be able to do more jiu-jitsu classes a week. You're going to be able to do more rugby skill sessions, football, like whatever the sport is. Hopefully that answers that question in enough detail. I'll just run through a few more here because I haven't got a load of time. Where are we at? We're at 12 minutes. That's all right. Shoulder pain from overhead pressing. Where do I start? So this is a good question. So this is common in sports where you're doing a lot of overhead movements. So a lot of CrossFitters get this, or if you just started in the gym and you just suddenly started doing a lot of strict press, split jerks, push press, or even if you're a power lifter and you're doing a bench press, which isn't technically an overhead lift, but still putting a lot of load on the front deltoid at the shoulder. The best place to start with this is isometrics. So same as the knee pain, but obviously isometrics for your shoulder and your rotator cuff muscles, which are the muscles, group of 3 to 4 muscles that sit deep into the shoulder and really impact the stability of the shoulder, and they're just really important for shoulder health. So easiest way to do this is to grab a light kettlebell. If your shoulder pain is quite irritable, start off with something that's 3 to 4 kilos. Hold it in a bottom-up position, which is the handle is there and then the big kettlebell is up there. So it's quite unstable. Neutral grip. And then you're simply just going to hold it standing out in front of you at 90 degrees. And you're going to try hold this position for 30 to 45 seconds. Do 3 to 4 sets of that. That's going to challenge your rotator cuff muscles. It's going to build a lot of strength there. But it's also going to reduce a lot of pain at your shoulder as well. Once you've done that, I would continue doing pressing movements, but I would try to find pressing movements that you can do without as much pain. So if you're getting pain with a strict press, for example, then you want to do a pressing movement that isn't quite as far overhead. So from a strict press, maybe you go back to doing a dumbbell bench press. The reason it's not as, taxing on the shoulder is because obviously a strict press is overhead, whereas a dumbbell bench press is that way. So the shoulder isn't having to be stretched and it's not being pushed in that overhead position. Build up some capacity in this horizontal press with the bench press, and then gradually go to more of an incline and then build your way up to going overhead. The key to that is just finding variations that you can gradually build up until you get into that overhead position. If you're getting shoulder pain from like a barbell bench press horizontally, then what you want to do is find other horizontal pressing movements that don't cause pain. So a lot of the time, if you swap to a dumbbell or a kettlebell in this position horizontally, it's a lot more comfortable than a barbell bench press for a lot of people. And you could try doing this on a single arm as well, instead of both arms, to work on each side separately. So yeah, that's a lot more comfortable for that. And then a lot of people with shoulder pain can still do all their back work and pulling movements. So you can probably still do rows. You can likely still do chin-ups and pull-ups with minimal to no pain. And you can probably still do a lot of your shoulder accessories and tricep work. Again, I would just avoid any extreme ranges to start off with. Example, if you're doing an overhead tricep extension, instead of overhead with your shoulder pain, then maybe you could do some push downs to start with. Then you could build up to doing extensions in this position. So lying on your back, doing a dumbbell skull crusher, and then gradually build up to doing overhead again. With shoulder accessories, lateral raises at a light enough weight would be fine. And face pulls or any other rear delt work would be fine as well. Last one, and then I'll finish this off. Can't hit depth in my squats is poor ankle mobility the cause. So if you can't hit depth in your squats, I assume this is back squats or front squats, there's a few culprits. So either it could be your hip mobility, your ankle mobility, or it might just be how you're stacked. So there could be a misalignment there. So if we start with ankle mobility, the limiting factor is going to be dorsiflexion, which is just the ability to get your knee over your toe. A simple fix for this and a good way to train this is just to stick some plates or to stick a slant board under your heels so you can artificially get some more dorsiflexion. Start at a high enough slant board or enough plates to where you can sit down into the bottom position of a squat with a neutral spine. Work at that for a few weeks. Load this like you would a normal squat. So if you're doing it with a barbell, just do it how you do normal back squats, just a bit of heel elevation. If you're doing a goblet squat, do that. And then week by week or every few weeks, just decrease the amount of heel elevation gradually. So then your body will be trained in this position where your knees are over your toes. And then as you slowly decrease the height of the heel elevation, it will get used to that more and more and more. And then before you know it, you'll be flat on the floor and you'll be able to hit ass to grass in the squat without having to kind of round forward through your back or any other compensations there. In terms of improving hip mobility, same thing there, to be honest, because sitting into that bottom position, being exposed to that position for long periods of time is going to be the best way to do that. In terms of just making sure you're stacked well, make sure when you descend in the squat that you're in a neutral posture. So you're not actively sticking your bum out with your pelvis like an Instagram model, or you're not fully tucking your pelvis under. You're just nice and relaxed at the hips. This will make sure that your hips are lined up with your rib cage and your head as well. This will just really help with balance in the back squat or front squat, and it will also help with your ankle and hip mobility. So hopefully that answered the question there. In essence, you want to add a bit of heel elevation in your squats for both hip and ankle mobility. Start off nice and high and then decrease that, and your body will adapt to the new position. Any more here? Struggling with back pain, tried massage, not getting anywhere. What's your advice? So this was someone probably at the gym again asking me about back pain. Massage is one of those things that feels nice for a few hours or maybe a few days, but it's not going to fix your back pain in the long term. And the reason for that is because it's not actually improving any of the things that matter when it comes to back pain, which is just the things that you need to improve when you're trying to get a bigger squat, or you're trying to get stronger in the gym, or you're trying to get a faster run time. We need to improve your mobility, your strength, your conditioning, your confidence. And then improving those things will then reduce your pain. And obviously a massage, someone rubbing your back, is just giving you some pain relief because your brain is sending signals to that area and then desensitizing it. But someone rubbing your back is obviously not improving your mobility, your strength, your confidence. So it's a very short-term approach, and it's not going to fix your back pain in the long term.